Okay, so let us go to lesson 22. As you'll notice that I've skipped over lesson 21 because it's a combination of what you saw in the previous lesson, lesson 20, so 2021 all together. Please, again, make sure that you are doing the exercises and you are able to share with me again so we can have a conversation at some point or any point that you can just set up a time with me and then we can have a conversation regarding whether you're on the right track or whether you're not on the right track. Or okay. So another short lesson. It is to do. It focuses on features. So a little bit of the theory. If we don't know what a feature is yet, well, a feature is something that we do at the same time, on the same, let's say, day. Maybe you do something on a Monday at 22:05 or whatever it may be. We might also do a feature every day. Excuse me. So, like for example, at the same time as well. Wackhead's prank joke was probably about one of the most famous ones as well. That were quite stagnant, and also Fresh's. I think it was the Ultimix at 6 or whatever it might have been. When he was doing his 5 Fem show was quite big as well. These features are again benchmarks. When you say benchmarks, it's a time of the show where you are like the listener gets used to it. So there's this theory. It's called Pavlov's dog. So Pavlov did he wanted to show how habitual nature is actually sprung by certain stimulations or whatever it may be, a trained stimulation. So what he would do is to perform obviously his theory or execute his theory, so that his hypothesis was proved to be correct, is that he had a dog, and what he would do is he would ring the bell, like ring a bell, every time he would feed the dog. So after a couple of days, I suppose maybe a bit longer than that, like he wanted to go and he would test now the theory of behavior, and he would ring the bell and the dog would immediately go to his little plate, his little I don't know, dog bowl, right? Okay, expecting that there would be food that is coming, coming and it's on its way. So it just shows us that kind of that behavioral mechanism where, if we're looking at, for example, a certain time, we really are used to it, we enjoy the feature as well, we automatically expect that as well, and we call it again a benchmark, a place to we kind of I'm not going to say build our lives around. The thing is that if you have a feature that starts at a certain time, and it doesn't start at a certain time, or it's missing on the day, whatever it may be, the listener is going to be a little bit confused and a little bit, um, uh, like shook up in a way and saying, "Where's this thing? Why isn't it starting? Or where's it gone? Is it cancelled?" Certainly do not do features earlier or later than what they have been obviously prescribed to the listener to be on a certain, like I say, certain day, certain time. And also, again, what is a feature at the end of the day? It's an exoskeleton that we build, right? Of acres that allows creative content to be dynamic on a usage basis. So I would say daily, again, or weekly basis, whatever it may be, right? So, for example, like the prank call, like the structure of it is that, let's say the presenter will, have they will phone somebody and they will do there will be a situation that'll be funny and it'll be different in whatever situation. It might be maybe relevant to the news, or it might be relevant to a listener that has suggested, please, like, prank my mother or prank my husband or whatever it may be. um, but the thing is that it was a very easy structure, like phone someone, make sure that it was pre-recorded. I would remember watching Wackhead or Darren Simpson again, and he would actually sometimes have many, many days. He'd be sitting there, he'd finish his show at 9 o'clock. I would come in for my 7 to 10 show, and he would still be there. Like I'm saying, so he'd be there the whole day. because the thing is that like he would attempt different pranks, and they just wouldn't land. So he would have a different one and a different approach until he would get one that was actually funny. So it wasn't just just a case of just going ahead and doing it. And yes, he has talent, and obviously had the talent for. The thing is, again, like to make sure that the feature landed, and again, the whole aspect was to make people laugh through comedic timing, and obviously the way that he would impersonate people or whatever it may be, right? So it's very easy. That's a simple one. The same one that I did mention, Ultimate, I think it was Ultimate X6, if I can remember, it was quite long ago. It was very simple. Like Fresh would start at 6 o'clock. It would be for about half an hour or so. He would feature a DJ's mix. It would actually run for about, let's say, 25 minutes, then 20, 25 minutes or so. And it would be a great mix. Like, I mean, because again, Fresh is also himself, like he's a professional within that field as well. Yes, like there's amen to the Fresh House Flavor CDs and well releases. I mean, just not at my age, yeah. But yeah, they were. I mean, they were just they're just organically classic. They're such great things. But then we get a little more. So we get into some features that are maybe a little more complex. So, for example, um, so we would do. I think I can't even remember the name of my own feature, but it was quite a great feature that we did on the show. Myself and Anele. So it would be like uh, we would ask because people are still driving home at about 7 o'clock or so, just from traffic and stuff like that, especially in Joburg. And we would ask them to look inside their car, in their boot especially, for stuff that genuinely does not belong there. And they would phone and tell us, for example, there would be medical gloves, and there would be pots and pans, and there would be these outfits that they used last Halloween. It was supposed to obviously like link into how much trash we just keep keeping and never take out of our cars. And I love the medical one. There was this lady, and she said, I genuinely cannot remember. I don't even know how these things got in here, you know which was quite funny in terms of us having more of a conversation, a little bit of play with her, and she enjoyed it as well. The listeners enjoyed it as well because it's surprising and it's dynamic and it's so simple as well. Features need to be simple. When I said complex, I'm saying to you like you would add another dimension to. Features can also be things that are like mental health stuff, or they can be lifestyle stuff, or it can be a sports feature, or it can be whatever. To create a mini brand within a show that can be easily recognized and with which audiences will become familiar. Great, tune in, a reason to tune in at that moment, which listeners add the feature to their list of daily appointments. As I've said there, people will just automatically expect that at a certain time because if they are daily listeners, they'll be at that particular point. They'll kind of like liken it to the point that they are at the Buku interchange. Like that's the time where it normally happens, and so on and so forth, right? So it creates a pattern of repeat listening. People like it, they enjoy it. They again put the whole point of radio is to put into your routine, of the listener's routine, so that they can increase time spent listening, right? So instead of just them tuning in for that feature, they would have confidence in your show and confidence in your creativity and confidence in your ability to entertain them and listen longer as we move along. Features are, metaphorically speaking, casings or containers for strong, relatable, character-based, and entertainment content, right? Listeners want to be entertained. The feature, if entertaining, will create a mini brand and will get listeners coming back daily to you and your kind of your on-air family, right? So stuff that I've already explained just in the previous slide as well. Um, Okay, so according to Tracy Johnson, these are the attributes of a successful feature. So let's go through and let's discuss them. It needs to be fun to do, and it's got to be fun to listen to. So I mean, fun is very, it's contextually definitive. So in other words, like, am I having a good time? In other words, have I learned something? Um, am I laughing? Am I crying? Am I empathetically just reacting? That's still having a good time. I mean, you're enjoying your time that you decided to spend with the presenter and the show. So that is the whole thing. Fun can be educational, fun can be interactive, and once again, fun can be entertaining, right? It needs to have longevity and be sustainable. So when we do say this, like we need to understand that also, okay, there's certain rules sometimes where they say don't allow a feature to be longer, like stay longer on your show than 3 months, and you should actually like take it away, even if it's doing really well. You should take it away and let it breathe and put a different feature at that time for another 3 months. And maybe if you want to bring that one back, put it back in at the same time and place. And kind of people like, oh yeah, like it's a reboot, reboot. It's come back, whatever. But the thing is, again, across the world, when features work, um, uh, people leave it in their presenters leave it in their shows for, like I say, I mean that those two particular features that I did mention from the other presenters were years. They were on there for years, and just because it worked, and people were not getting bored of them. That's the thing. Uh, like again, with those in two in particular. So, for example, even ours. So we had ours. I don't like again. I built my features based on this kind of like methodology that I said to you about 3 to 6 months. Leave it on, then like scrap it, then carry on. You understand? Um, because it's even though it's there'll be new people every day with new things in their cars or whatever it may be, it might get a little bit dry and might get a little bit stale. But again, kind of the prank, if the prank can only be lost, I'm saying to you as a feature, if let's say Darren Simpson had stopped becoming or stopped putting in the work, you understand, so it become fraught and like stale, and it's the ultimate would only be a reason to take it off if, let's say, there would be repeat mixes, there would be no longer talent to draw from, or the repeat talent that we have on are just not doing their jobs. And like again, let's say the presenter needs to have the investment to move on. Okay, it needs to be a good fit for the presenter or team, and so a kind of a reflection, obviously, of who you are and what your show stands for, and what the feeling and the atmosphere that it is. And there needs to be demand for the feature. So, in other words, people need to, like I say, keep wanting to hear what it's all about. If the features can fulfill all of these criteria that have been previously listed, then the feature is probably going to work for a show. Look for a game, maybe for information, funny content that is based largely in storytelling. So again, you're going to say to me, but then let's use music based. So music based features are the most common features. They're also commonly used. So in other words, we have a lot of features that are music based, but then are um, they're literally carbon copies of one another that you'll find on many different shows, many different stations. Music features do work the best. But they are of little to no consequence when it comes to creativity and being able to kind of tell a story, because what they stand for. I'm just saying what they are. Always the same one because it's been used so many times. Is like a now and a then, so you get something that's been obviously covered by a current artist, and then you play the original and the covered artist, and then people will say which one they like more, or they don't even have to say anything at all. You just want to play the two and have people see the difference in. And you can add a little bit of aspects in the background, information, kind of do a little bit of story, like I say, storytelling around, like why the original was written in this way, and the context of time, like in the year, and again the age that it was, which would make it more interesting. The thing is that and most of the presenters won't do that. You could also take, like let's say clips, from an interview of maybe the behind the scenes of maybe the composer, or something that was maybe scandalous at that time, that the song particularly refers to, is abstractly referring to. It doesn't matter, right? Or alternatively, you could also even have the person that like I say, covered the song and have them on an interview, on air in an interview, chat about that, and then have kind of two stones, one stone and what is it? Two targets, hitting two birds with one stone. By a bird, man. You can hit two cans of Coke. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So there's many ways that. So for me, as a creative, that kind again, we spoke about the generator, we spoke about the reactor, we just spoke about the essence of creativity and why it's important to not stop at your first thought, right? Because again, it's about what the second and the third layer that you add to these features that make them more interesting on a daily basis when you are, let's say, airing them out. Features need to be scheduled regularly. Be careful of having too many features in a show. So top-rated shows have a balance of like consistency, right? So the things that people expect. Again, we have obviously the first and foremost, like I say, okay, benchmarks, which are news, our sports, our traffic, etc. Right? But we also then have features that, well, you should have maybe like two features a show. I think that's just I think that more than that is overdoing it. And also it kills your creativity as well. You're basically copying out to the fact that you won't have interviews in there, or you don't want to, or you're scared of maybe having them. Um, or the thing is that you're just not putting the work in, like to be able to have a good balance of unpredictable, maybe current affairs conversations, like what's happening again on social media, and bringing that up as a spin-off conversation, good three-dimensional approaches to like what's happening in the world around you, and being able to kind of put that all together and use it on the show. I use the following checklist of questions to help spark creativity. Here are here is the checklist. Check preparation sheets from the previous day. So they could be good callers that can be used to create even more content. There's always a way, to build something creative and slash content on the show. It could come from, like I say, the back end of something that was said in an interview, or like you say, a certain moment that you want to pull out a comment that a caller said in a specific call out from the previous day, and then knock off a brand new, let's say, conversation that comes from that, because maybe a lot of people had reaction to it. And so you want to actually bring in, like I say, expert professional, whatever it may be, really like make it come alive and stuff. You don't always have to do that. The point is that there's a lot of that'll happen constantly where you don't want to miss mark, right? And miss an opportunity for something cool, something original. Okay, compile a mind map of the audience to know what is topical, relevant, and local to listeners. So that's exactly as we did with the character profiles, right? And the composite listeners. So find out what is going on in their lives of the cast of your show. Personal stories that will relate to the listeners could work well. So again, that's when you do work with a team. Please, I mean that's the thing. But ideally, I mean, the thing is, you're supposed to be for the majority of your on career, you'll do a show alone, and you must draw from your own personal experience. You must be aware. You must be awake. You must be woke to be, like Gen Z about it, and bring that into your show, every single show that you do. Create a clash of context by putting a character in a situation where they don't belong, and then exaggerate the situation for comedic effect. Again, only a suggestion, not a mandatory rule that you need to stick to. Nearly done here. So features, there are multiple opportunities for interesting stories, features. So Lane, just taken from your textbooks there, set in 2018. Here's a couple of suggestions, right? Set up and resolve conflict. That is a rule for radio. So the thing is, because you want to balance the bias, obviously, from the subjectivity slash to the objectivity, and people you got to stand in the middle as kind of like a moderator in a way, and a mediator in many senses, but you can't do that unless you actually strike like a nerve in people's um own reaction. Do you understand? Their own minds, their own hearts, and whatever it is, right? So you'd have to, when you do bring up just the content in general, you want to be able to have people think and want to react. You understand? Give them a lot of information that is relevant, but also give them different sides and different aspects and different dimensions of address or create dilemmas. So again, feature specific can be fun, and again, when I say fun, like to allow problem solving, just in general. Um, Again, creates dilemmas. So for example, you would look specifically, we look at mental health, you'd want to be like, why, for example, let's say, just the action of wanting to post versus not wanting to post, or what to post, and what you're going back and delete on, and what kind of like eats away at your mind once you have posted, or when you made a comment for and someone reacted to that and it was negative or it was positive. Or we can go, like, we can address just that dilemma alone. And so many different aspects of that can break kind of down. They can be under a mental, like I say, maybe called like a digital mental a digital state of mind. That would be a cool name for a feature, right? Resolve something with an interactive topic, right? Go on a quest or a mission, which is really cool. So let's say you're sitting there and saying, okay, I'm quite happy with going out and exploring the world around me, right? At the end of the day, what we want is people that are shedding more light on, like, on the community and the world around them. So a lot of information, a lot of, let's say, um, I want to say, inspiration comes from just what's happening in the world around you. Go out, go have those street interviews, say on the street interviews, quote unquote. Write a comedy sketch, create a top five list on a topical story. You must create it originally. You may look for inspiration, but don't go take someone else's work, all right? Because that's just lame. I'm not gonna say stealing, because I mean we do that consistently in creating content, but when it's creative, like creating a top five list is creatively done already. I'm saying, also in the aspect that it might be humorous, could be the reason why you genuinely do not want to do that. If you all have a top 10 list or top five list that is informative, that comes from, let's say, again, like a researched article, file article, that's cool. You can pull it, name them, name obviously the source, and then obviously off the back end of that, maybe do a bit of a call out or interaction or an interview. Introduce a new interactive game. People love games only because they like to win. That's great, right? It doesn't mean they have to win money. Just want to have a winning moment. People also like to listen to people that are having a great day when they win, and we kind of cheer for them. We don't go off like lame or whatever it may be. Include audio. So, in other words, make sure that you are adding different dimensions and aspects to your show itself. Okay. With features, you need to be able to book the guest. We spoke about this in previous lesson, where the guest is relevant and they have to be directly relevant to the topic at hand. A way that it can build that kind of that fluidity of making it grow and making it show different aspects of it. So we could have a guest on for a multitude of reasons, but we shouldn't have them on for those multitudes of reasoning. So we want to have them to focus on a specific area. So the expert professionals to that subject matter. They want to be able to ask the questions to continue to tell more of the story of what it is that you actually are addressing. Book an expert to shed light on an issue. Like I just said there, personality experts, and create a viral video. Like, you can create a video. You don't know if it's going to go viral, but you always go for the intention of a good quality, a great context, whatever it may be. Do you understand? And obviously well produced in terms of, again, the creativity must be at a top notch, because you are a creative. So you should be, I should judge you. People should judge you and be like, but you're on radio. There's again, is a 4-year-old that is so much more interesting right now. They're doing a talk about, I don't know, learning how to potty, and man, is it funny. I'm not gonna look at your video. It's not interesting, right? It doesn't mean like it's always has to be again funny or comparative in that way. Like remember, we have a gazillion people on this planet, and they will be in the mood for what it is that they want at that particular point. In your video, if well produced and well orchestrated and well planned, could be what they're looking for today. So, future examples. I wonder if how do I do this? I'll make sure that let's play this. Yeah. Uh, so share the sound. It's on there. Okay, let's play something. Let's see. Let's do this one here.
From NPR News, it's All Things Considered. I'm Guy Raz, and it's time now for All Tech Considered. While some teens and tweens spent the summer babysitting or mowing lawns, a growing number spent long hours in front of a screen with their parents' blessing. From Hoover, Alabama, Gigi Duban reports on a new high-tech phenomenon: very young mobile app developers.
One night this past summer, Ozair Patel and his parents were sitting around the dinner table. They were talking about the new school year and how Ozair could be more organized. Now, Ozair is a bright kid, but like a lot of 13-year-olds, he loses things. Handouts, notices, things like that. So by the first week of school, he'd built himself an iPhone app. He called it Barry Schoolmate, after his school, Barry Middle.
It has the school's calendar on it, so you can find what days you have school off, and you can email your teachers from your iPod or iPhone.
Word spread about the app, and Ozair became a middle school rock star. In the hallways, kids patted him on the back. They gave him high fives. Most of them wanted to know how he did it, so they could build mobile apps too.
I'm going to pause so we can just kind of credit it as well. Very structured, very nice. We know also a new generation of app developers can be quite consistent, because we know that there is definitely a possibility of many different areas. So obviously, I'm saying like the sources that we have kids, and we have teens, and we have tweens, and we have even 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds that are creating, let's say, complex and fun apps, simple apps that are like just like viral crazy, you know. So there was, but the structure in this is it makes it very clear as to what the obviously the feature is going to be dealing with. Then you can see that this is, I say, quite heavily, obviously heavily produced, so quite in a documentary style, where you have, and this is it's very reminiscent of, let's say, a CNN, a BBC, you know, let's say, investigative journalism piece that is put together, that is not part of the news, I'm saying, so the daily news, but it is of like it's of a news nature, so it's newsworthy, right? And that kind of, I'm saying, that type of production as well. So super nice. It's great. I love the way that they put the effects in as well, so you get that kind of like atmosphere of the you know, of the students and the school kind of like bustle.
In fact, the school district's chief technology officer was so impressed, he asked Ozair to make apps for other schools. You agreed?
Yeah, I did.
Are they going to pay you?
A lot. I don't know if it's a lot, but they're all going to pay me.
A school system spokesman said they haven't yet nailed down how.
Love that. So putting in like a Vox, like a Vox piece, she sits down. She is also identified as the journalist, like I say, the presenter for this piece that is, again, contributing to the feature itself. She has a little bit of a direct conversation, goes back into the narrative.
Much he'll be paid, but they'll be sure to follow all child labor laws. Ozair is okay with this odd little arrangement.
So I'm working 2 jobs, being a student and working with them.
Isn't that kind of bizarre?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I'm getting paid, so.
Ozair is part of a growing trend of kids turned entrepreneur. For instance, the 8th grader who built Bubble Ball, an app that managed to knock Angry Birds out of the top app slot.
So that's really cool as well. Once again, can you see the effects? So the effects have to be used sparingly in terms of, like, for example, this is a documentary, a quote unquote documentary piece, because of the fact that it is so well produced, but it also includes sound effects, boxes, like interview pieces, whatever it may be, and obviously a script there in there. So she wants to obviously include what's great in there. So she's including enough factual information, obviously the very direct and unique information, which is interviewing this child genius that is now doing this, and she's making sure that well, the producer is in this way making sure that as those pieces are put together, because they didn't just come together, as you know, this is one of the most difficult things to produce, is a kind of like a documentary piece, or a radio documentary piece, right? And I want to play the whole thing because I want to go through some of the others as well. Let's listen.
It's been downloaded more than 9 million times. Many young developers are hoping to nail the next big hit and make some money. Say you build an app for an iPhone or iPad. You charge 99 cents per download. Then, if 1,000 people buy it, that's $700 after Apple's 30% cut. Free apps make money through ads.
I'm T-Pain, you know me. Come big music, nappy boy. Ooh-wee.
But not all kids do this to get rich. They want to build something fun, like this.
I'll take it home with me. Got money in the bank. Shawty, what you know about that?
It's a musical app that changes your voice. Stanford professor Ge Wang created it, and other popular musical apps. He says more kids are learning to build apps now because
I'm going to stop it right there. So that is, for example, if I had to do one bit of crit, it would be that is a little bit, it's a little bit vague. We don't really know. Like she's saying, like kind of like the music app started before she actually said it was a music app, and so we're a bit lost. It just sounded like a song that was busy playing. We don't know that it's been obviously technified or this or whatever it may be. But all in all, that's quite a nice feature. Let's have a look at a bit of the next one.
With more American children becoming overweight, many parents are wondering how to talk to their children about weight. One program for families in Silicon Valley is both straightforward and successful. Here's Sarah Varney of member station KQED.
It's already been a long day at school and a long day at work for most of these families. Yet here they are, gathered in a Stanford Hospital classroom in Menlo Park at 5:30 in the evening, cheerfully sorting through pizza boxes and canned soup to learn about what's in their food.
Okay, we'll take one more question and then unfortunately we have to end. Yes?
What if you have a family member who's picky?
The children here are all in the highest percentile for body mass index, or BMI, and they've signed up with their parents for a 6-month healthy eating.
So I'm going to stop it there. So it's basic. The structure is the same thing. Has obviously the fighting childhood obesity. It might also seem as though it's also a once-off feature, which is obviously a thing as well. I want to kind of also maybe build something that makes sense. Excuse me, just for a second. That makes sense just for that moment. I'm saying. And so we have a once-off feature, like for example, this fighting childhood obesity. We could build a couple more, subject matter headlines of that, and then build into that. But kind of, I want to move on just because of the fact that I know most of these, I think all of these are kind of that's documentary feel.
Bullying on social media sites like Facebook gets a lot of news coverage, though most teens actually think social networks are friendly places for them. That's according to a new study released today by Pew Research Center's Internet and American Life Project. As NPR's Laura Seidel reports, most teens still do see a lot of meanness towards other kids online.
If you sit down with some teenagers and ask them if people are mean on Facebook, heads nod.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm talking to a group of 17-year-olds at Pioneer High School in San Jose, California. Shasta Hudson and Samantha Abrahams elaborate on just how mean.
I mean, I think pretty mean. People just, they use Facebook as...
they're honest.
Yeah, they're very honest. So they can say stuff that they wouldn't usually say in person because they're, behind a computer.
Facebook definitely adds another dimension to the emotional turmoil of teenagehood. Instead of having fights among a few friends or in a solitary corner of the schoolyard, Abraham says teenage drama gets a bigger audience online that bleeds over into the real world.
Pause it there. Once again, kind of the same feel, but I like the fact that it is the same presenter that has gone out to go and do these street boxes with these teenagers in specific. So what would be great, Shay, is also to again dynamically create something that comes off this that brings live callers on air and maybe has I would do even more dynamic content bouncing off that have, let's say, like child psychologists that are sharing their experiences of very particular cases. You understand that also maybe might be in a round table discussion with you in the studio, which is great. That means you can carry this on for, let's say, about an hour by having this particular feature, once-off feature maybe, like obviously introducing this production piece. Then going obviously to, let's say, some live callers. It sounds a lot like talk radio, and then going into, let's say, the experts as well. When I play the rest, you can go listen to the other one on your own there. And I just want to end off there. It's please use the list on page 148 to create a feature with yourself, and again, check it through with me. But as on that, I'm going to end the lesson there, and we have a